The Choker course in Whistler, Canada provided the scenic backdrop for the opening round of the FIS Snowboard World Cup. Boarding aficionados gathered in their droves for the eagerly awaited first women's final of the season, and it was the reigning overall World Cup winner who dominated from start to finish. Class told as the irrepressible Karen Ruby of France took an early lead in the final quartet. She left Italian Jennifer Frino, compatriot Marie Lesses and Zoe Gillings of Great Britain in her wake from the first corner. The 25-year-old's fine form in snowboard cross continued as she glided to another first place over Canadian snow. The popular Ruby shared her joy with a second-placed Italian Jennifer Frino and compatriot Marie Lesses of France on the podium. Their aim is to reach the standard she has set and try to deny her a successful defence of her world crown. In the men's final, the finish proved to be much closer than the ladies' event, as the whole quartet were in contention for much of the race. Italian Simon Malusa took the early lead, but Frenchman Florent Matha was on his tail, with Dieter Krasnick of Germany and Stefano Pozzolini of Italy in close attendance. It was nip and tuck all the way, but the climax to the race proved to be a thriller. Over the tricky, undulating final section, it was Dieter who led over the last jump to overtake Malusa just before crossing the finish line. Matha's dip on the line was all important, and he had claimed another World Cup victory in this discipline to add to his 6 previous wins. The 22-year-old has a bright boarding future ahead of him, and he was delighted to taste victory in a classic race. The FIFA World Youth Football Championships in the United Arab Emirates. This is the third time the event has been staged in the region, after Saudi Arabia hosted in 1989 and Qatar followed 6 years later in 1995. Since the start of the series, 24 teams representing 6 confederations have been battling it out for the right to call themselves world champions. But as become almost custom, the favourites for the title are the South American powerhouses Brazil and Argentina. The oil-rich UAE has poured millions into the tournament, and football fans in the Gulf have also played their part. Thousands have filled the stands and cheered on the teams. Crowd pleasers Brazil have revelled in the conditions, but they know the time for entertaining is over. This tournament has helped launch the careers of many big-name players, including Diego Maradona, Dunga, Luis Figo, Raul, Michael Owen, and Thierry Henry. The full lineup for the quarter-final series was United Arab Emirates playing Colombia, Brazil playing Japan, Argentina facing the United States, and Spain clashing with Canada. The latest Action Asia Challenge Series, one of the premier endurance races in the region, was held in Taiwan, where athletes had to negotiate not only the tough mountainous terrain, but also extreme winter conditions that made the contest a challenging one. A 5:30 a.m. start at Fulong Beach was a first for the race, and for many of the competitors. As they plunged into darkness, the course revealed its first test, navigating the correct route off the beach and through the small seaside village. As dawn broke on the cold winter's day, the leaders bridged the gap, heading for the open road and hoping to put distance between themselves and the main pack. The slippery conditions caught many off guard, and with the mountains looming, far more treacherous conditions lay ahead. After the bike ride, it was the much more dangerous abseiling test that awaited the competitors. Once clipped on, there's no way but down. The fixed line section dropped competitors over the cliff and into the first abseil section. The teams then faced the fury of the large winter sea in the rock section. Athletes were forced to time their fixed line traverse between the large breakers that pounded the coast. With the traverse behind them, it was the return journey. The scramble across the slippery rocks tested the balance of each of them. From the rocky coastline, the teams moved back inland, heading for the river and into the kayak transition. After the abseils and the long dash along the wind-blown Fulong Beach, it was Taiwan's Team Huamao 1 that finished first in the two-persons team category. There was plenty of local colour as for the second year in a row, Kota Kinabalu in Malaysia welcomed the Mild 7 outdoor quest. It was straw hats on for the 26 international teams as they started the prologue, making an unusual baton for what would be an unorthodox relay race. At the start, the teams got into ocean kayaks, negotiating a short course with everyone paddling flat out on their stomachs. MSOQ race planners always had a few twists to keep the event a mix of both the traditional and the non-traditional, and the prologue was no exception. First up, a team member was required to run an obstacle course while carrying 3 coconuts. Sounds simple enough, but it turned out to be anything but for many of the competitors. Some had better hands than others, with the less dexterous spilling their load more often than not as they cradled their precious nuts. The hat was then taken off and used as a relay baton, while another teammate was required to pluck a floating starfruit, a local delicacy, from the water a few dozen metres out from shore.
Just give me some of that pink stuff, eh?
After 2 other tasks, the 4-man teams headed out for their final paddles in bamboo rafts, traditional transportation in this part of Malaysia. It was a fine way to earn an advantage going into the opening stage, the first 4 teams receiving 30-second head starts.
Okay, please welcome the first team over, Team Montreal!
There was a 6 a.m. start of the Singapore Marathon as nearly 10,000 runners assembled near the National Stadium. The tropical heat of the island nation can be oppressive, and hence the early start to avoid the harsh sun. After 15 kilometres, Anuraja Kure from Sri Lanka led the race, closely followed by pace setters from Kenya, Abraham Pandoi and Gideon Kioj. The runners had to pass through some of the picturesque settings of Singapore. The magnificent Esplanade Theatres at the Bay, located at the 30-kilometre mark, provided a perfect setting as Kenyans Simon Saw and Abraham still powered their way through. However, the chasing pack, consisting of John Kile and David Simakuo and Barnabas Kajuiho, were close on the heels at this stage. It was John Kile, a Kenyan currently based in Singapore, who paced his run better in the final stages against his compatriots and came through to win the race. In the women's event, Wang Yu of China completed her race in 2 hours, 43 minutes and 57 seconds to win it. It was a keenly awaited setting as the cream of Asian football gathered in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia for the 2003 Asian Football Awards. As expected, the most important award of the evening, the Asian Player of the Year, was announced by the AFC Secretary Peter Verlappen, along with the AFC President Mohammed bin Haman. Iran's Mehdi Madavikia won the prestigious award, beating Thailand's Tedasc Chaiman and Uzbekistan's Dynamo Kiev star Maxim Shishki, the other two nominees. The 26-year-old Iranian plied his trade with German club Hamburg. Madavikia has had a stellar season with the club, helping the side to finish fourth in the league to qualify for the UEFA Cup. Rising Japanese star Yoshito Akubo was named Asia's Young Player of the Year. 21-year-old Akubo, who plays for Suzero Osaka in the J-League, scored 8 goals in the 15 games he played. Akubo, however, was sent off the field in the East Asian Soccer Final against Korea for his second offence. The inaugural Asian Champions League winning club, Al Ain of Dubai, won the Club of the Year award. Al Ain beat Korean club Seonam Chunma and Iranian team Sepahan for the award. Despite complications and instability, Iraq, the nation's soccer team, won the award for the Best International Team of the Year. Former Iraq international Hussein Saeed received the award for the Iraq Football Association, an organization that was headed by the slain Uday Hussein, son of former ruler Saddam Hussein.
The Women Player of the Year, 2003, is from China, Bai Ji.
China's Bai Ji was given the AFC Women Player of the Year award. Bai Ji overcame competition from Japan and North Korea for the title. Equipped with new supplies, bolstered spirits and high expectations, Iraqi boxers have started a tough climb towards their first Olympic appearance since 1988. Iraq's 24-member boxing team visited Kabala, 75 miles south of Baghdad, for a competition with local boxers. The local boxers were trying to displace members of the national team, but none succeeded. Using seized funds from Saddam Hussein's former regime, the US-led Occupation Authority provided equipment and salaries to the boxing team, which has a 2-ring training camp. Team members were provided with shoes and gloves, something they had to buy themselves in the 1990s when Saddam's eldest son Uday headed the Iraqi National Olympic Committee. Uday was well known for torturing and jailing athletes who failed to do well in competitions. Boxers also complained he cared only about soccer, leaving few resources for other sports. Although Iraq's Olympic Committee was dissolved by the IOC has invited Iraq to participate at the Games in Athens. Coach Abdul Zahara Jawad said his boxers, despite minimal time to train for Olympic qualifiers, are determined to make it. The Iraqis also have an American, Maurice Termite Watkins, helping to train them. After the bouts, the boxers carried Watkins on their shoulders, chanting, "Iraq is back," their slogan for the Olympics. The name of Adidas's latest creation is evocative. Roteiro, named after the logbook used by Vasco da Gama, the legendary Portuguese explorer. Undoubtedly, this ball will lead to a passage of glory and riches, but who receives it is, of course, yet to be seen. The 16 teams competing in the championship in Portugal will all play with the metallic coloured ball, which will be used competitively for the first time. The ball has already undergone trials by top players, and judging by some of the star names who will take part in this tournament, it meets with their approval. One of those to give the ball a good rating is England captain David Beckham. The Real Madrid midfielder is renowned for his deadly touch from free kicks, and he believes the ball will aid his craft. As Beckham recognises, the ball has been thermally bonded together instead of using the traditional process of sewing the individual panels to each other. The representative from France also has no cause for complaint. Munich star Michael Ballack is looking forward to doing some damage to the opposing net with the creation. As would be expected, the ball has undergone rigorous testing ahead of its debut. One can only hope the players are as well prepared for the big kickoff. Morocco's national soccer team have yet to make a serious impact at the continental level. They have won the African Cup of Nations only once in 1976 and have failed to even come close since then. The country can boast a host of stars who have established themselves in European leagues, but they were unable to lead the team past the first round at the previous African Cup of Nations in 2002. Morocco's current head coach, Badou Zaki, is rated as one of the best goalkeepers in the Atlas Lions history. However, Zaki is not promising miracles. But following previous failures, Zaki is moulding a team that won't rely heavily on stars who have been criticised for their lack of commitment to the national team. Goalkeeper Khaled Fouhami still plays in Morocco and believes that the team can triumph despite the strength of their main rivals Cameroon, Nigeria and Senegal. Following the failure to reach the World Cup finals in Japan and South Korea and the embarrassing exit from the last African Cup of Nations, the pressure is on Zaki to lead Morocco to the latter stages of the 2004 African Cup of Nations and the World Cup in Germany. Thousands of miles away from the desperate situation in their country, the Iraqi soccer team enjoyed a short stay in the tranquil seaside town of Bunbury in Western Australia, thanks to the generosity of the local soccer authorities. The squad was forced to take time off when the war started, and the local championship also had to stop. But their coach, Bernd Stang, formerly in charge of Australian soccer outfit Perth Glory, has reassembled the national side. The 10-day visit to Western Australia was aimed to build goodwill between the two nations and gave the Iraqi squad a much-needed morale boost. The Iraqi national team finished top of their qualifying group for the Asian Soccer Championship. On current form, they can reasonably expect to qualify for the World Cup in 2006 as well. The players were given an enthusiastic welcome from local children in their base at Bunbury. The Australian tour looks to be one of many international trips for the team. Soon, it's off to the United Kingdom for more intensive coaching. The stage was set perfectly for the Rip Curl Cup. A decent crowd, including Australian tennis star Mark Philippoussis, and most importantly, huge 3-metre barrels of surf throughout the day. There were plenty of epic tube rides to keep the beach dwellers entertained, with Shane Dorian securing his best result of the season. The 31-year-old Hawaiian announced his retirement from full-time competition, but secured his best result after emerging unscathed from countless tubes. Dorian scored 8.98 in the final, enough to put him in third. His fellow Hawaiian Andy Irons was the man in form, posting 3 of the event's top 4 single-wave scores. Undoubtedly, it was a grueling day for all the finalists, as they had to surf 4 times in challenging conditions. Patterson had a source of inspiration to see him through to the title and a first prize of $30,000 US. The superb waves lasted for the entire competition, giving spectators plenty of thrills. England and South Korea met in the match to decide who finished 5th and 6th in the Champions Trophy Women's Field Hockey Tournament in Sydney. Lee Jin-hee opened the scoring for South Korea from a 9th-minute penalty corner. The ball fell invitingly for the defender after Kim Yoon-mi's shot was blocked by England goalkeeper Hilary Rose, who dove full length to her right. England responded immediately with Rachel Walker deflecting a cross into the top corner. Nam Jin-ah restored South Korea's lead in the 58th minute when she found herself unmarked inside the scoring zone. A penalty shootout was needed and Rachel Walker scored the winner to give England 5th spot. The Netherlands and the world champions Argentina met in the match for the bronze medal. Argentina started strongly, opening the scoring with a well-worked penalty corner, which left Maria de la Paz Hernandez with a straightforward deflection in front of goal in the 3rd minute. Netherlands coach Mark Lammer's rotation of players from the bench ensured fresh legs continued his team's drive forward as the match progressed. The Netherlands replied effortlessly. F.K. Mulder deflected the ball in from the penalty corner in the 45th minute to give the Dutch a 2-1 lead. The 4th place finish was Argentina's worst result since Australia beat them in the corresponding game in the year 2000. The gold medal final saw the hosts Australia take on the defending champions China, who topped the standings after the round-robin games. Australia made the ideal start when they took a 1-0 lead after 20 seconds. Peter Gallagher ran down the left, passed to captain Katrina Powell, who then found Julie Towers alone on the right post, and the ball ended in the back of the net. Australia doubled their lead from a penalty corner in the 12th minute when Susie Faulkner arrived at the left post after Karen Smith carried the ball into the circle and hit the ball to her. Minutes later, Australia went 3-0 ahead. Gallagher received the ball on the right and then smashed the ball over the sliding China goalkeeper at a very tight angle. As the game drew towards its end, Australia began to make mistakes and allowed China to pull back another goal. But China's fight back fizzled out as Australia hung on for a 3-2 victory and the Champions Trophy. The win moved Australia into second place in the world rankings, behind Argentina. The women's final at the richest squash championships of the year between Natalie Granger, the second seed from the USA, and world number 1 Carol Owens of New Zealand had the fans on the edge of their seats in Doha. Owens, the overwhelming favourite to collect the women's trophy, raced to an 8-3 lead in the first game. An initially nervous Granger saved the game ball, then fought back to 8-8 in a single hand. Moments later, it was the American who had her first game ball at 9-8, then converted the second at 9-9 to take the early advantage. The second game was almost the reverse of the first, with a now confident Granger quickly going 8-3 up, with Owens saving 7 further game balls before the 26-year-old from Washington, D.C. finally went 2 games ahead. Owens edged the third game, but Granger rallied back in the fourth to claim a dramatic 10-9, 9-7, 9-10, 9-4 victory in 61 minutes. So how did Granger, who spent much of her career in the UK, feel about her victory? Ecstatic. Following England's success in the Rugby World Cup, the Sevens squad arrived in Dubai for the opening tournament in the IRB World Series full of confidence. They took time out to present a signed shirt to Sheikh Ahmed bin Saeed Al Maktoum. England scored heavily on day one to progress to the semi-finals, where Saracens wing Richard Horton gave them an early lead against South Africa. But Chester Williams' Springboks came straight back courtesy of the blistering pace of young Earl Rose. And then it was player of the tournament Fabian Juries who stole the initiative for South Africa with a well-taken try. With time running out, however, up stepped Earl Rose with a calmly taken drop goal to make it 13-12 and clinch a place in the final for South Africa. Last year's Dubai finalists, Samoa and New Zealand, contested the second semi-final. It was one-way traffic from the outset as the world champions scored at will. Craig de Goldie scored first before Brad Fleming offloaded to Tafai Iosa, one of the stars of the tournament, to increase New Zealand's lead. Fleming himself got into the act with 2 well-taken tries as his side won 33-0 to march through to the final. Fireworks were promised at the final, and that was what the crowd were treated to on and off the pitch in one of the best finals ever seen in Dubai. South Africa won by 33 points to 26 to end New Zealand's 4-year reign as Dubai champions. It was much to the delight of the 20,000-strong crowd, who certainly got their money's worth of entertainment. International motorcycle champions have competed together in the Arabian Desert, with cross-country riders coming first. The 29 International Motorcycle Federation champions are in Dubai for an awards ceremony. But first, they enjoyed a series of races and challenges in the desert around Dubai in aid of a motorcycling charity. Riders took part in an all-terrain vehicle race across the dunes in the middle of a sandstorm. This was won by Daniel Willemsen, motocross sidecar champion of the Netherlands, with Britain's Dougie Lampkin trials champion second. The cross team of Willemsen, Cyril Deprez of France and Eddie Seal of Belgium continued their fine form to take overall honours in the 4 events. Next, competitors drove a 4-wheel drive vehicle up the highest sand dunes. Among those taking part was indoor trials champion Adam Lager of Spain and women's trials champion Laia Sanz, also of Spain. Valentino Rossi of Italy, the world MotoGP champion, turned up for the Group N rally event. Rossi has competed in a world rally round in the United Kingdom where he now lives and was trying his hand at rallying on sand surfaces. He said it was completely different to other rallies he had driven as it was much slower. He went on to win the rally event. Some of the other competitors went off to the beaches near Dubai to take part in a jet ski race as well before the awards ceremonies. London staged the biggest sporting celebration in British history as up to 750,000 people poured into the capital to see England's rugby union heroes parade the World Cup through the city centre. Their open-top bus procession drove through Marble Arch at the start of the parade, an honour usually reserved for the royal family, who they later met at Buckingham Palace. Fans, many draped in the red and white flag of St George, braved bitter cold to catch a glimpse of the players as they rode through the heart of the city. Thousands lined the route, some climbing trees to get a better view. The biggest cheers were reserved for coach Clive Woodward, who is tipped to receive a knighthood in the forthcoming New Year's Honours list, and fly half Johnny Wilkinson, who scored the winning points in the final. Wilkinson received one written proposal from a female fan cheering from a balcony amid celebrations which surpassed even those in 1966 when England won the Soccer World Cup. The buses, named Sweet Chariots for the day, stopped in Trafalgar Square, the epicentre of London celebrations, to display the trophy to a huge crowd which sang Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, the popular anthem of English rugby union. England's victory has sparked an outpouring of national pride in a country which has grown all too accustomed to sporting failure in recent years. But Woodward was keeping a sense of perspective despite the massive celebrations, saying his thoughts were now on the campaign for the next World Cup to be held in France in 2007. Team captain Martin Johnson, who proudly brandished the trophy to the Trafalgar Square crowd, said the experience of being a World Cup winner was slightly surreal. Later, the players arrived at Buckingham Palace to meet Queen Elizabeth. Woodward and Johnson showed the trophy to the Queen, who joked it was still undamaged after travelling so far from Australia. One of England's most fervent fans at their matches was Prince Harry, who was not at the reception, but his elder brother William met the players' officials, stopping to chat to Wilkinson. Next stop on the day of celebrations, a champagne reception hosted by Prime Minister Tony Blair at number 10 Downing Street. England's victorious rugby team have been entertained by Prime Minister Tony Blair at a reception at his official home. The players and officials of the England team had only time for a brief rest after leaving Buckingham Palace, where they had been received by Queen Elizabeth, before journeying to Downing Street.
There's still something there. It's gone a long way from the other today. I mean, it's got French genes. But in the European, there's two different teams.
Once again, the team was feted by Prime Minister Tony Blair at a reception in their honour. Jason Leonard led the way, once again brandishing the Rugby World Cup, followed by fly half Johnny Wilkinson. Among those attending the reception were Defence Secretary Jeff Hoon, Baroness Amos, the International Development Secretary, and Tessa Jowl, who has responsibilities for both culture and sport. It was quite a day and a night of celebrations for this hugely successful Rugby World Cup team. And let's face it, it's been a while, so who knows how long the celebrations will continue. BMW Williams have been busy testing, but not so busy that they couldn't enjoy a winter party recently in the Austrian resort of Seefeld. The stars of the festivities were drivers Ralf Schumacher and Juan Pablo Montoya, who had a go at various events on the ice, including driving, hockey and cycling. Montoya was a title contender with Williams, but then finished third overall behind Ferrari's six-time champion Michael Schumacher and McLaren's Kiki Räikkönen. Formula One's car makers and commercial rights holders hailed a breakthrough deal that looked likely to end the threat of a breakaway championship. The car makers, represented by the GPWC Holdings Company, who had threatened to form their own series, said in a statement that they had made significant progress in a meeting with banks and Formula One Supremo Bernie Ecclestone. It said the participants had agreed to prepare a memorandum of understanding before the end of the year regarding the future structure of Formula One. No details of the breakthrough were immediately available, but a source close to the negotiations said this is a win-win for all concerned, the banks for Bernie and the car makers. There is certainly no more threat of a breakaway series. The source said the banks had effectively agreed to sell their shares to the car makers, and the next stage was for the transaction to be finalised. The GPWC, which groups car makers BMW, Daimler Chrysler, Ferrari, Ford and Renault, wants a far greater share of Formula One's revenues. Leslie McKenna delivered a winning performance at the women's half-pipe event in Tandadalan to share second place in the World Cup overall standings. The 29-year-old scored a total of 37.1 points in each of her runs to claim honours in the final against Fabienne Retelia of Switzerland, who was second on the day and fifth in the overall standings. Victory in Sweden left McKenna with a total of 1,000 World Cup points. The 18-year-old freestyler from Finland, Antti Utti, dominated the competition in Tandadalan after his triumph in the halfpipe of Valle Nevado. Ante Uti, who was already in front after both qualification runs, enlarged his lead in the Halfpipe World Cup. All finalists occasionally had to handle extremely strong gusts of wind. As Ante Ute took all before him, Risto Matila was very pleased with his second rank. The 22nd Southeast Asian Games opened in Vietnam. The SEA Games formally opened in the main stadium in Hanoi with a lavish ceremony of colourful dancers. Teams from Brunei, Cambodia, East Timor, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand and Vietnam are attending the Games.
We would like to welcome the delegation from the Republic of Indonesia. Indonesia, đất nước nghìn đạo.
Các bạn, bây giờ chúng ta cùng chào mừng đoàn thể thao đến từ Cộng hòa Dân chủ Đông Timor.
We would like to welcome the delegation from Timor-Leste. Đông Timor, quốc gia trẻ nhất trong khu vực và trên thế giới. Đây là delegation heading to the stadium is the Socialist Republic of Vietnam. SEA Games 21 tổ chức tại Malaysia vào năm 2001 là bước tổng duyệt quan trọng về lực
Nghi lễ quan trọng nhất của cộng
The
đồng
lighting
các
of the
dân tộc
flame above the
ASEAN.
Games was accomplished in a fanciful way, with a horse rider dressed in traditional martial costume carrying the torch out of the stadium. He then seemed to return, hanging under a flying parachute aeroplane, to light the flames in a giant bowl towering above the audience. Some of the sports events to take place during the Games include athletics, swimming, archery, badminton, basketball, boxing, canoeing, cycle racing, fencing, soccer, gymnastics, handball, martial arts, shooting, table tennis, tennis, volleyball, weightlifting, wrestling, snooker, bodybuilding, chess playing, pentak, shuttlecock, and the Malaysian sport of sepak takraw. Nasser Saleh Al Attiyah wins Dubai's International Rally. Qatar's new Middle East champion ended a successful year by winning the Dubai International Rally with a 9-minute margin. Al Attiyah, driving a Subaru Impreza World Rally car, beat Sheikh Abdullah Al Qasimi of United Arab Emirates in a Group N Mitsubishi Lancer. While Michel Saleh was third in his Group A Toyota Celica. Alatia took the lead on the first special stage and was never headed again with a trouble-free one. Al-Qasimi's brother, Sheikh Khaled Al-Qasimi, crashed out in spectacular style when his Mitsubishi Lancer hit a sand ridge at the end of the day's first stage and rolled several times. Both drivers were taken to hospital for treatment but later released. Syrian driver Mohammed Hamsho in fourth place rolled his Ford Focus WRC after 2 stages and suffered back injuries. In third place was Abdulaziz Al-Kuwari, who looked at this stage as if he could take the Group N championship title. But his hopes were dashed when his engine blew at the end of the first stage. On the second day, Alatia led throughout to take the Middle East Championship title.
Singles matches, John McEnroe and Jeremy Bates.
Tennis legend John McEnroe breezed into the semi-finals of the Honda Challenge Seniors Tournament at London's Albert Hall. John McEnroe had had impressive wins over Mats Wilander and France's Guy Forget. The winner of 7 Grand Slams in an illustrious career showed he has lost little of his old magic as he hit a variety of smashes, delicate lobs and devastating serves against all opponents. The bane of umpires around the world, McEnroe also showed glimpses of his infamous temper when he threw his racket to the ground after hitting a shot into the net. McEnroe, with 3 straight wins, now faces either Michael Stich or Henri Lecomte. McEnroe also beat Guy Forget of France to win the Honda Challenge Seniors Tournament for the 4th time. McEnroe beat Guy Forget 7-6, 7-2 as he continued his recent fine form in the Seniors Tournament. McEnroe is 44, Guy Forget 38.
That's far out in. That's enough, okay? That's been 5 already.
Despite all his tantrums, McEnroe continued to receive loud applause as he won the game. Despite the physical exhaustion of flying over 30 hours to take part in the season-ending Volvo Masters of Asia at the Bangkok Golf Club, India's Arjun Atwal had a major reason to be proud of himself. The Calcutta-based pro had become the first Indian ever to earn a spot in the highly challenging USA PGA Tour after finishing a joint 7th in the 2004 US PGA qualifying tournament in Florida. Not surprisingly, he's delighted. The Indian shot to fame after winning 2 titles on the European Tour, the 2002 Singapore Masters and the 2003 Malaysian Open. Ever since his early days, Arjun has dreamt of a spot on the US PGA Tour. Neil Hodgson completed his first laps aboard the Ducati Desma Sedici machines he will ride in the MotoGP World Championship on a busy day of testing at the Ricardo Torremos circuit in Valencia. He and teammate Ruben Aus were joined on track by Ducati colleagues Loris Capirossi and Troy Bayliss, as well as riders from the Honda, Aprilia and Proton teams. Hodgson has switched to MotoGP with the Diantin Ducati team after cruising to World Superbike titles, and now has to get to grips with his new 200 mph plus bike. The Englishman has a familiar face alongside him. Aus was his Superbike teammate and has also made the switch to MotoGP. It proved to be a largely frustrating day for the majority of riders due to damp conditions caused by overnight rain and then a minor oil spill when the track finally dried. However, the sun shone throughout the afternoon and World Superbike champion Hodgson was delighted with his first experience.